Hi guys, it's the day before the equinox, the 19th of March, and the new Heart Story website has gone live. I'm currently writing the newsletter and setting that up. I have about 35 minutes before I have to send it, and I do have to send it at 6 o'clock because I'm going out to dinner with my parents and then I'm meeting a friend after that, so I'm having a very busy evening. So this has been taking up so much of my time that, yes, you've guessed it, I haven't had time yet again to think about the Sabbath at all. And I'm kind of particularly disappointed this time around actually because as I was saying in a recent video, I've been hoping to maybe change my focus a little bit with the Sabbaths and start maybe going back to thinking about the concept of Gaia and focusing more on the earth cycles rather than my inner cycles and stuff like that. But what I'm going to do is, as usual, just go back to the ritual outline that I created a couple of years ago and go with that and just be spontaneous in the moment. I'm starting to think that maybe I should just accept that I don't plan ahead for Sabbaths, and maybe that's something that, like, I'm really missing writing ritual and planning a ritual in detail and that kind of thing. And I do have plans, like I said, to do that, and not only to be doing different kinds of rituals for the Sabbaths, but also to be doing fairly frequent rituals to kind of do inner work as well, maybe on the dark moons. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that will eventually happen. I think I need to accept that, like, ritual planning is just not something of a priority for me right now, and maybe that's something that I need to address and think about. And yeah, but I mean, in my defense, this took a while, guys. I had all sorts of ideas for other things I was going to launch today as well. Those will not be launched today. They will be launched in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, as the case may be. But I am actually going somewhere during the day, which is something that I haven't actually done. I said months and months ago that I was going to start going somewhere kind of like in nature or to like an historic monument or something on the Sabbath during the day, and that is actually happening. We are going to some Irish megalithic tombs tomorrow, me and my parents, so that's really exciting. It's somewhere we've been planning to go for a long time and we just haven't got around to it. And do you know what? It's actually been, I haven't actually done that, gone anywhere on the day since the autumn equinox. Like, isn't that just disgraceful? Because Samhain was my birthday, and then ever since then I have just been in basically utter turmoil. And I just haven't really, like the last two Sabbaths, like the midwinter and Imbolc, I just wasn't in the mood. And yeah, so I am pleased that I'm doing that and that I've gotten as far as actually organising that, even though I haven't actually written any elaborate ritual. But I have a feeling that I'm on the cusp of coming back to myself with regards kind of planning ritual more and stuff like that. I think I just needed to get through those couple of months and sort things out in my head. Yeah, the point was supposed to be, look, new website, go and check it out. Hi guys, I'm in my parents' house this morning and we're heading off to the megalithic tomb soon. So this is altar number 2, and soon enough I will have my main altar here as well. But I think I'm going to keep this one here in my bedroom because I'm going to have my other altar, my main altar, elsewhere, which I will share with you soon in another video. But I think I'm going to keep this one in my bedroom because I just really like it. It's quite simple compared to my other altar, but it has served me well over the past, I don't know how long I've had this, over a year anyway. So this is my contemplation space this morning. Hi guys, so there's I think about a 90% eclipse happening here in Dublin today, but of course, as you can see, it's too cloudy to actually see anything, but there is a strange kind of light falling at the moment. We'll definitely be able to see that it's darker than usual. I'm not altogether sure though how dark it will actually get. It's been a while since we've had such a major eclipse, and yeah, I'm not sure how much light we actually lose with and not quite full eclipse. So it'll be interesting, but it's definitely gotten a lot darker. At first I thought that it was just that it was going to rain or something, but then I realised, oh no, it must be about time for the eclipse. So yeah, I'll switch the camera back on if it looks like it's going to get in any way properly dark. I'm facing the camera north at the moment just because that's the nicest view, but the sky is pretty much the same all over. We've got a thick blanket of cloud going on, as is so often the case here in Ireland. So I'd show you as well that the raspberry bushes in our garden are starting to get some major leaves going on. No, it's not going to get any darker than this. Actually, this is yeah, I'm not sure how it's coming out on the camera, to be honest, but it's already starting to lighten again. I think the moment of the eclipse was about 9:30. It's just a couple of minutes after 9:30 now, and you can definitely see already. Obviously, like I say, it's not going to come through in the camera properly at all, but it's definitely starting to. That's up there is where the sun would be now, just above that roof. And yeah, the weird kind of light is sort of already dissipating, so that was interesting. It's amazing how much sunlight gets through with just 10% of the sun. I did see a full eclipse one time. The light goes very, very weird altogether. It does go quite dark, but it was something akin to just before a downpour was the kind of light that we got here, with 10% sunlight coming through the clouds, diffused through the clouds as well, I suppose. But that was cool. Hi everyone, so it's evening time now. I'm going to be starting my ritual in the nearish future. I think first I'm going to do just some chores, and then I think I'll probably do some yoga before I start. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that, but I often like to do a little bit of yoga before I start my rituals, or often just in the evening before I meditate as well, because I find that it really centers and grounds and kind of focuses me. Especially if I'm a bit tired or a bit scattered, just doing yoga wakes me up and just leaves me in a more ritual amenable kind of mindset, I suppose. So it's often, if I have the time, it's often something that I like to do to just sort of get me into the right state of mind. And I'm definitely feeling quite kind of sleepy and tired and a little bit mopey today. I'm a bit better now than I was in the afternoon. In the afternoon, I just kind of went to bed for a while. I was just really a bit wrecked. That seems to happen to me a lot these days on the Sabbaths, and I think it's something about, I often take the day off, and if I've been really busy during the week and then I take the day off, then it just sort of hits me like a ton of bricks then if I have the day off. Not only that, but kind of treating it like a special day or whatever, and knowing that I'm supposed to be doing ritual and supposed to be sort of getting something out of the day can be a little bit exhausting as well. And I know I've talked about this probably in every single Sabbath vlog for the last couple of months, just about this feeling of kind of tiredness and not getting around to planning a ritual, and just not really knowing what I want to do when it comes to ritual in the evening, and not really feeling like doing ritual. And I was kind of in that space today, and then I just suddenly thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to doing something more similar to what I used to do when I started out on this path. So a couple of years ago, it's I suppose it's 2.5 years ago exactly since I started really focusing on my spirituality, and ever since then I have done a ritual on every single Sabbath, or you know, near every single Sabbath. But in the first year maybe, I was kind of doing ritual in quite a different kind of way. It was a lot more elaborate. It included a lot more focusing on my cosmology and almost building up my creation story and my own personal cosmology through the different actions and focus areas of the ritual. And I'm probably repeating myself here. I was probably saying this quite recently, but I kind of got to a point where I knew what my cosmology was, and somehow didn't feel like I needed to do that anymore. Or maybe I just wanted to go deeper. The core part of my ritual felt quite hollow. I would kind of do all of that, and that was quite meaningful and nice, but then I would get to the core part and I wouldn't really know what to do. And since then I've been kind of experimenting a lot more, maybe in the past year or more, maybe year and a bit, maybe year and a half, I've been experimenting a lot more with kind of trying to get into a trance state, path working and doing that kind of thing with varying degrees of success. And that kind of took over, I suppose, and I started just to feel a bit like the pre-planned ritual things, that I was doing the same thing over and over, just wasn't really meaningful enough. But I'm feeling now like I do want to return to that a little bit, maybe in a slightly more minor way. There are various bits that I think I will omit. But then when I went to print out, yeah, I had decided that I was going to do that, and that I was just going to go along with my ritual notes from the spring equinox from last year, because I had a ritual that, you know, the very first spring equinox ritual that I did in recent years. I have all of those Word documents on my computer, and I often just print them out if I haven't got around to writing anything original on the day. So those will be the first 12 that I celebrated, starting with the autumn equinox of 2012, I think. Yeah, 2012. I think that's right. Yes, that would be right. So the spring equinox of 2013 was what I thought I was going to be doing. But then when I looked at it, when I actually opened up the document, I discovered that I had completely forgotten that I actually wrote from scratch pretty much a ritual for the spring equinox of 2014, which I had actually completely forgotten about, and it was so powerful. It was the most powerful. Well, it actually centered around a poem, and I'm not going to say which poem because it's just quite personal, and the whole ritual kind of hangs on that poem. And I'd written an address to the Morrigan, quite a short address to the Morrigan, that kind of followed up on my feelings about that poem and what I was doing with that poem. And then just another little part of the ritual, another kind of piece of poetry, I suppose. And I did a bit of a path working and stuff like that. And as soon as I saw that, my initial reaction was, oh, this is way too specific to last year. I don't think I can just rehash this, because I wrote it, you know, that week for the day. It just came to me. I found the poem and it just resonated with me. And it just seemed so right for the spring equinox, for that sort of emerging, the corresponding with Persephone's ascent from the underworld kind of thing. But then I just thought, you know what, I don't even remember these words. I don't even remember what I wrote, and I just scanned them very quickly, but I didn't read them properly, and I don't even remember the poem properly. And I thought, you know what might be really exciting would be to actually do this, print this out and read it again in ritual. Not as words that I had already kind of composed and were fresh in my memory, but as something that I did last year. Almost as though I'm maybe some sort of backwards sigil magic, where there's something powerful about the fact that I wrote something and forgot about it, and then unearthing it again at the right time of year if you know what I mean. Something a little bit like reading back over your diary, but more powerful. So I think I'm actually going to do the same ritual again. And like I said, my initial response to that was, oh no, this was written as a once-off ritual. I wasn't planning on reusing this material again. And my initial reaction was kind of, oh, I probably shouldn't do that. But then I just thought about it and I thought, no, you know what? I feel like this is actually really relevant again this year. I feel like whatever I was working towards with the energy of that ritual last year, it didn't quite come about. It didn't quite get off the ground. And it's all about transformation. I will say that much. It's a feeling of just needing to step into the next part of my life. And this has been ongoing, and I have talked about this in previous videos recently. This feeling that for the last couple of years, the last 5 years even, I've just been gradually, every year, stepping slightly closer to something, and slightly closer to some more conscious, more contented, happier, less hurt, less sad version of myself. And I just suddenly thought, you know, this is actually really relevant, and maybe this is a ritual that I will do again and again until I get to the point where I feel like I don't need it anymore. So that's really interesting, and I'm feeling quite different now than I have on the Sabbath, facing into ritual for quite a long time now. I'm feeling more back to how I used to feel, I think, going into them, which is good. I'm feeling less depressed, I suppose. Things have been very difficult for me emotionally and in my personal life for the last 6 months. And I kind of feel like maybe finally things are starting to become clearer for me. I'm starting to understand some of my motivations, and I've mentioned before, I think I mentioned in the Imulk video, that, you know, I had some pretty harsh lessons to learn that I didn't think still needed to be learned. I thought that I had got a grasp on how things work, on life and love and romance and just being an adult and being happy and what all that is and what it entails. And I thought I had released any of the sort of neediness and unhealthy kind of tendencies of your teenage years, when you're sort of still shrugging off all of the trauma, no matter how major or minor, of your childhood, and you know, you're still figuring out how to deal with other people and how to be happy. And I thought that now in my mid-20s that I had passed that point of needing to learn those lessons, those really harsh life lessons about, you know, what your feelings really are and what they mean, and which ones you should actually be nurturing and following up on, and which ones are actually arising from pain and arising from a place of an unhealthy pattern. I really did think I'd gotten to grips with that, and I thought that what I was following up for the past 6 months, just the feelings that I had been chasing, I thought that I was following my intuition and that I was following something kind of pure, I suppose, something emotionally pure, something more kind of native to me, and that I was kind of tapping back into myself. And on some level I was, on a lot of levels I was, but I also managed to be completely blind to the fact that actually I was also perpetuating and jumping right back into an old, very negative cycle. And the problem is that I unknowingly was propagating this really unhealthy cycle for the entirety of my young adult life, my adolescence and my young adult life. And I knew there were unhealthy things about it. I knew that I had unhealthy responses to and ways of dealing with feelings of romantic attachment. But I thought that, you know, those were just growing pains, and that, you know, I never thought that there was something potentially quite amiss at a very core level when it came to that stuff for me. I really, really didn't. I thought I had a grasp on, you know, what was healthy and what wasn't, and when things were coming from a pure place for me and when they weren't. And I do have a tendency to tell stories. You might have noticed, you know, the whole name Heart Story. I do have a tendency to tell stories about my life and the trajectory of my life, and just how things work and what's going on in my life and my relationships with other people and just everything that's come to pass so far. And obviously everybody does this, but I do have a particular propensity to tell things in a logical way, to tie things in together. I have a particularly good strong ability to turn random events into a story, I suppose, to join the dots, to see things on a wider kind of scale, to see wider patterns. And in many ways that's a gift, but in other ways it can be a curse, because it means that I often feel like everything needs to be turned into a story, into a logical story. There always needs to be some greater explanation for the pattern of things that have happened for me internally and emotionally and also externally. But that can actually be quite dangerous, because it means that when I decide something or when I'm being moved towards something, I can get very persuasive with myself because I create a story that makes sense and I tie everything into that story, and it becomes impossible for me to untangle it or to see any other possible interpretations or to really buy into any possible other interpretations. And to a large degree I have to acknowledge that I create the stories that I want to hear, and we all do this. And while I always thought that I had a good connection with my intuition, it's been becoming gradually clearer over the past couple of years that I have a terrible connection with my intuition. I have a very good connection with that part of me that makes up these stories, but I have a very hard time figuring out which parts of those stories, which threads of them are true, and which of them are maybe just an angle or a gloss. Or if, they're all true. Maybe they're all true and they're all just different ways of seeing something. But I make major decisions based on these kind of stories that I put together. So yeah, I've really gone way, way off topic here. But I think what I was trying to say with that was that I've been going through a lot of turmoil because I've been jumping from story to story. And I feel like I am kind of now figuring out that the major story I had been telling myself about my relationships with other people, about romantic relationships, about love, for the past, I don't know, like more than 10 years, it's finally dawning on me that that story arose out of very early childhood trauma, and that it's not the only story. It doesn't have to be the only story for me. It's not how things have to be. It's not something that I have to stick with. And it's not necessarily, on the face of it, a negative story. But it has led me to a very tangled and dark and difficult place. Just through... Well, yeah, no, it wasn't actually particularly helpful, because it basically put on a pedestal the feelings of need and desire that we experience when we are attracted to somebody, when we love somebody. It put them on a pedestal rather than what I'm now starting to understand to be the more healthy and nurturing aspects of love that we develop over time, and that are what we need to carry with us, and which are the feelings and experiences that we ultimately must make our choices based upon. And that ultimately we're not supposed to, or I don't think it's the healthiest option, to make our choices about love based on those feelings of, I suppose, need. And I'm using the word desire in a very specific way, but desire, that attachment, again, using that word in a very specific way. But I had this realisation about the idea of unconditional love, and it suddenly struck me what that actually meant. And it just, like a lightning bolt, I suddenly understood something about the Buddhist notion of not being attached, of removing attachment. And I suddenly thought, not being attached doesn't mean that you don't feel things. It just means that you're able to offer up your love without needing anything in particular in return. And I mean, obviously it's not healthy to be in a relationship where you're giving and giving and giving and you're not receiving, or where the other person doesn't have a healthy love for you and don't behave in a loving manner towards you. Obviously, you know, that's obviously we need these things in relationships, but I just suddenly realised that's all that unconditional love really is. It's just love that is not dependent on the other person giving you something in return. And that's been quite important for me too. I'm sorry, I've really gone off on a bit of a mad circular ramble there, and I'm not even sure where I was going with that at all. But the idea of transformation is still important to me, because I don't know if I am going to finally realise that I am just kind of chasing the white rabbit, that I am putting my happiness kind of in the future in a way that I'm constantly advising other people not to, you know, that I'm kind of projecting it, that I'm saying, oh, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when. I don't know if I'm going to finally just realise, okay, this is what I'm doing with this. But as I said in a recent video, it does also feel like I have been on the precipice of something for quite some many years. And I think part of it is this journey of healing that I was talking about a few months ago, when I went briefly to counselling and I started my self-love journal and that kind of thing. Coming to the realisation that I needed to heal was quite a realisation. And I kind of thought that there was just one particular thing that I needed to heal from. And in healing from that, I realised, oh no, this is this is just the most recent branch arising out of a very deep root. And I'm only just now starting to really acknowledge and really embrace the idea, and into my identity, the idea that, you know, I have problems with anxiety, and I had a very painful childhood, particularly late childhood and early adolescence. And that is something that I did carry with me as part of my identity up until I kind of went to college. And then I really threw it away. I chucked it away because I didn't want to be a victim anymore. And I think that was a good choice. That was, you know, it's definitely not a great idea to be holding on to a victim mentality. You don't want to stay there forever. And also just because I met so many people and I saw so many people who were hurting in ways that I couldn't even begin to imagine. And my pain just paled in comparison. And I just looked at all these people with these terrible childhood experiences and family backgrounds, and, you know, complete and utter lack of love from their parents, and just, you know, abusive relationships, and just all this really bad stuff. And I just thought, you know, I didn't go through any of that. I had a rosy childhood by comparison. And I think I sort of dissociated myself from the possibility that I actually ever was depressed, and that I had a problem with anxiety, that I have a problem with anxiety, and that I had a very difficult time through a lot of my growing up. I mean, a lot of us do, most of us do, we all go through this. But I don't think I gave myself enough space and time to kind of acknowledge that and say, you know, this is part of my development, and it was hard. It was really hard. And I'm only coming out of the end of it. I'm still coming out on the other side of that tunnel, even now. It's been a really long and hard journey, and I think sometimes I'm just realising now that actually maybe there needs to be a little bit more patting myself on the back for that, and acknowledging that and embracing that and saying, yes, this was hard, it was terrible, it was bad, and I'm on the other side of that now. And maybe that will help me to actually release some of the patterns that started at that time, which I'm now realising that I've been perpetuating to this day. Because again, you know, my life isn't terrible. I don't have any, like, on the outside, you don't, to look at my life, you wouldn't think, oh, you know, I've got issues or I've got things that I need to deal with or anything. It's all quite subtle. It's all quite very well buried under the surface, but perhaps this is what has been holding me back from getting to that place that I feel like I've been nearly there for so long. And it's really just as simple as not acknowledging where I've come from and not being able to let go of that because of it. Like, that I've been carrying all of this pain with me and all of this rejection and this feeling of being in exile. I've been carrying all of that with me because I just denied it. I just turned around and denied it and just said, no, that wasn't what it was, or I don't want to think about it, or let's just forget about that now and just move on. And I stopped journaling at that point, you know, rather than journaling through the process of becoming less unhappy and actually becoming happy. I just stopped for quite so many years, and I really only started journaling when I came back to my spirituality. But it's taken me until now to realise that actually maybe I need to go back to those journals again and not necessarily read them or immerse myself in them, but just accept and embrace that was me, you know, that I did survive something, and that is just a part of my past now, and that I can start releasing that from myself and start transforming into the person that I, you know, honestly never thought that I could be. When I was in my teenage years, I never thought that I could even be as happy as I am now. I never thought that I could be this kind of person, or that I would have a spiritual practice like this, or that I would start my own business, or any of the things really that I've been doing in recent years, or any of the things that I've been feeling. Anyway, my camera actually ran out of memory, so that's definitely my cue to stop talking. So I think that's about all I'll have to say about the equinox this year. Those are some pretty disjointed ramblings, but I hope you're able to make sense of them and that maybe they resonated with you or were in some way relevant. One last thing I'm going to say is that I was saying in a recent video how I was feeling a bit like disconnecting myself from the idea of kind of doing inner work at the Sabbats and instead kind of focusing on the earth cycles. I'm kind of rethinking that now, having found this really powerful ritual and just having realised how wonderful that can be, you know, to come up with something that reflects something that you need within, and that also in some way reflects what's going on with the cycle and therefore connects you. I think what I'm going to do instead is continue to write rituals, or to do my inner work type rituals at the Sabbats, but also I think I'm going to create a second altar to mark the seasons, like a seasonal altar. And in particular, I might do that when I move back to my parents' house, and I might have the seasonal altar in my bedroom, and this altar will be going into a different place, which I'm going to share with you pretty soon. I'll probably make a video all about it, but that might take a while because I might wait and do a kind of transformational video, like show you when it's finished, my new sacred space. So yeah, okay, I'm going to stop rambling. I really hope that you all had, I'm going to post this video tomorrow, so I hope you all had a wonderful equinox. I hope you enjoyed the solar eclipse, if you could see it where you were, and yeah, new moon on the spring equinox is really powerful stuff, I think. So yeah, I hope you're all well, guys, and maybe stumbling through life on a slightly easier path than I am right now.